Hello, my happy shiny puppies. This is Melody Fletcher, and I teach the law of attraction and reality creation to highly intellectual people in a way that actually makes some freaking sense. So, today I want to talk to you about time management, which might seem kind of weird to some of you because, you've just last week heard me say how time doesn't exist, and now I want to help you manage it. Well, here's the thing, time doesn't exist, but the illusion of time sure does exist. And learning how to work with time, especially in this new energy, can be really, really helpful. So these are definitely not your mother or your father's time management tips. You probably won't have read about these in a book before, or maybe you have, like one of the new time management books, perhaps. But I haven't read these in a book. So time management is something that I've spent a fair amount of time on. See what I did there? And the reason why I've given it a fair amount of attention is because, this is something that I have had, I've been challenged by myself. Yeah, because my life used to be very, very structured. I was scheduled in 15-minute increments, which meant that literally if I had to pee, it threw off my schedule for the rest of the day. There was no freedom in it, no flexibility in it. And I just read the other day that Elon Musk, who's one of the most successful people in the world, the owner of Tesla and SpaceX, he schedules his day in 5-minute increments. Oh my God, that sounds like a nightmare to me. I remember being scheduled that tightly. It just felt like being in prison. And so a lot of time management techniques are all about how to schedule it better, how to control the schedule better. And it just sort of, it's like thickening the walls of the prison. It doesn't work for me anymore at all. And it may not work for you either, in which case you may need to upgrade your time management techniques. So one of the things that I've found is that a little bit of structure goes a long way, and a little bit of structure can actually give you a great deal of freedom. Too much structure, you feel like you're in prison, but no structure is really, really overwhelming. So if you've sort of been swapping back and forth between too much structure and not enough structure, you may want to go ahead and bring in a little bit more of a framework, a little bit more structure, and you might be very surprised by how much freedom it brings you. So, having said that, you want to maintain flexibility, and that's actually my very first tip for you. These are very practical tips. So the first one is to schedule, but schedule with flexibility. We're not yet in a time, in an energy state where all of us know exactly where to be when, and just spontaneously get the hit, like go over there now, and then there's a party over there, and nobody had to invite us and nobody had to schedule anything. We all just show up at the perfect time in the perfect place. But we're not really there yet. We're still in transition time. So scheduling things, agreeing on a time when we will meet, when we will do something, is helpful. It certainly helps me to schedule my coaching calls, for example. When I talk to my private clients, I don't just sort of call them willy-nilly. We do have an agreed upon time. So it's okay to schedule some things, but schedule with flexibility. So what do I mean by that? I mean, build in a buffer time. So for example, concrete example, my coaching calls are generally 1 hour long, and that is what it is. It's 1 hour. But when I need to stay on the phone, when I'm having a ton of fun with somebody, or they're just at the top of the hour, they're just right in the middle of releasing something, and I don't want to let them go like that. I want to be able to spend, if I choose to, more time on the phone. I want to be able to spend more time with that client or more time at that task. And so I actually create a buffer between coaching calls where if I need to go long, I can. Now, it is still my choice, and I have no problem setting those boundaries and telling someone, you know what, we're done for the day. That's it. But if I choose to want to keep going because I think it warrants it, because I want to have that flexibility without throwing off the entire day. When I schedule tasks, I give myself buffer time there as well. I schedule a little longer than I think it's going to take me. And the reason for that is, again, I want that flexibility. So basically, I schedule with kindness. I'm kind to myself in how I schedule. Those 5 minute increment and 15-minute increment schedules, those are brutal. They're not kind. So you want to be kind. And if you're thinking, well, then I won't get hardly anything done, just wait, I'm getting to it. Yeah. So that's tip number 1, schedule with kindness, because all of this is meant to make you more productive, not less productive. So don't worry. I will get there. Yeah, but that kindness is going to keep you from becoming overwhelmed, and it's going to allow you to be able to fill those gaps fluidly with inspired action rather than predetermined actions and getting really, really frustrated and overwhelmed. Speaking of overwhelm, tip number 2 is going to really help you with that. So what you want to do is you do not want to keep your to-do list in your head. Because if you do, chances are very, very good that your mind is going to assign the same priority to every single item, which means that the same priority is assigned to completing that report, as to cleaning out the junk drawer, as to go grocery shopping, as to going to your kid's baseball game, as to coming up with a new product idea or whatever. Yeah, they all have the same priority in your mind, which means that your mind has no problem waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go, did you forget to? Oh no, you got to remember. Oh no. Did we remember to do this? Oh God, what if you forget to? And it's just stress. Because your brain is just running around, and it's like every item on your to-do list is a spinning plate, and your mind is trying to keep them all spinning, and it's getting really stressed out, and you get really overwhelmed. And then what do you do when you get overwhelmed? You shut down and you don't get anything done. Yeah. So my trick is to do a brain dump, and do this regularly. Take all of your to-do items and put them on a page. Now I fare far better at this when I use a pen and paper or a pencil and paper. I do this by hand. When I try to do it electronically into an Excel sheet or something, it doesn't have the same effect for me for some reason, and the brain does connect differently when we write by hand. So try both and see which one works better for you. But I do this by hand. I actually write things out. That also allows me to cross things off, which I love to do. And I get everything, private, business, everything. Every task I got to do, I write it on a to-do list. Now you can organize this list in various different ways. You might want to have a business and a private one. For me, it's kind of all the same. It's just my life, And what I do is then I organize it by priority. And I put the things and I'm brutal about this. I'm really, really harsh about this. If it's not really a priority, I don't make it into one. Nice to have things are not a priority. Something's going to go wrong if this doesn't get done, that's a priority for me. Yeah. And so I take out the things, I find the things that truly are like, oh my God, I got to get this done, priorities. And then I create, there's 3 categories for priorities. There's priority 1, something's going to break if you don't get this done, ASAP. Number 2 is like it needs to be done for the business. And number 3 is nice to have. So paying a bill when it's 2 weeks from the deadline is a number 2 priority. Paying the bill the day before the deadline is number 1 priority. So I think you get the idea. And I prioritize my personal items the same way. I don't leave those out of that and put that on the back burner or non-existent burner the way that I used to. It's all part of the same list. It's all treated equally, and then I prioritize from there. And that really helps to take a lot of the pressure off. Because first of all, I don't have all that information running around my head. I don't have all those plates spinning anymore. What I have now is sort of, I've got this, it's on the page, I won't forget it. It's there, it's organized, I've prioritized it. I won't miss it, yeah? And that actually really helps the brain calm down, the mind calm down. And so now you're not as stressed, now you've got it, now you can sleep through the night. You don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it actually organizes you more, because you won't forget things, and you won't, inadvertently be doing things that are keeping you from doing something that's a really high priority, and then something breaks down. So it gives you a lot of peace of mind, yeah. And that leads us into the third and final tip that I've got for you, which is where most of my productivity really came from. When I figured this out, this really just blew my productivity right out of the water, and it's so counterintuitive, and it totally, totally works. So here's what I do. I have my big master to-do list that's got all the stuff in it. And I do have some certain things that I schedule, but I schedule like this. On days when I have appointments, that's my schedule. I have my appointments. I don't make myself responsible for anything else. And on days when I don't have appointments, those are my free days where, I can basically do whatever I want. It's not scheduled. I decide the night before. Yeah. And that's not the tip, deciding the night before, but I decide the night before what I'm going to have to do the next day, what my have to is. And here's the tip. I choose one thing and one thing only. And this is a task that I have to complete the next day. Sometimes that task is go grocery shopping. Sometimes that task is, you got to complete this thing. On coaching days, coaching is my task. I schedule the day. There's a bunch of appointments with buffers in between. On the days when I don't have those, I schedule one thing. Yeah? And here's the reason why, because you might be thinking, seriously, Melody, I can't just do one thing a day. I'll never get everything done. Well, I don't just do one thing a day. But here's the thing. I only make myself responsible for doing one thing a day. And then when I've done that one thing, I get to stop working if I want to. And I really, really have to honor that. So if I really do want to stop working that day, if I'm tired and I don't want to and I'm hitting a wall, I'm done. I'm done after that one thing. I've ticked it off. I've crossed it off my to-do list. And I can feel good about myself. I can feel successful. So I've had a win. And I've set myself up for an easy win. Your one thing can't be a 16-hour project. It has to be something that you can easily get done. That's sort of when you wake up in the morning and you think about, oh, this is all I got to do. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. It could be something that takes you half an hour. It could be something that takes 2 or 3 hours. I would say 2-3 hours max. Yeah. And if you have a big project, break it down into different things. And then one of those is your one thing. So here's what happens. Now, if you want to stop working after doing that one thing, you can. But a lot of the time, you might be surprised at this, a lot of the time after you do your one thing and you cross it off, you're on a roll. You're on a winning streak. You just won and you want to win some more. So then you look at your to-do list and you pick out the next thing that jumps out at you. Yeah, and if you have a huge priority item, you might choose to do that, or you might choose to do something else. Whatever your intuition wants to do. Because it will be right, you may not realize why. So for example, the other day, I was done with my one thing, and then I spent 3 hours cleaning my office, organizing my office, because I'd never properly organized it. I moved in, I sort of mostly organized it, but not finished the organization, and I went ahead and did that. Was that my top priority? Hell no, it wasn't, not even close. But here's the thing, I have a lot to do these days. I'm working on Reality Academy, which I've mentioned. Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of people involved. And so, it definitely wasn't my top priority to organize my office. But I also realized after, how good it felt to have a really organized office. Because when my environment is cluttered and disorganized, even if it's like in the drawers disorganized, like not on the surface, but that it's disorganized in the drawer. And then what happens is that it kind of affects me, clutters my mind. And when I clear my environment, it actually helps me to think more clearly, be more creative, and be more productive. And so that actually was a setup to some really productive days. Even though it cost me those 3 hours, I was perfectly inspired to do it at the perfect time. And I had room in my schedule because I'd already done my one thing. I was on a winning streak and I just kept on going with things that helped me win some more. What most people do is they set themselves up for a fail. They have this huge to-do list, which they can never get done. I know I used to do the same thing. I could never get it done. And so every day at the end of the day, even if I crossed off 20 things, I still felt like a failure because I didn't get done. Now, I was never, ever going to get done because, of course, new things go onto the to-do list all the time. And so I was never going to win. But when you get on a failing streak, when you feel like you're failing, what happens? Your point of attraction starts to bring more and more and more experiences like that to you. So things go wrong, things take a lot longer than they should, you're less productive than you want to be. And instead of, having a lot of leverage and getting a lot done in one day, a lot more than you should logically be able to, you get a lot less done. Everything takes a lot longer. So the tip really is to set yourself up for the easy win, because once you're on a winning streak, you want to keep winning. And you might be absolutely shocked at just how productive you become by doing that. Just keep in mind that you have to honor yourself. You have to honor your agreement with yourself. And there are going to be days when you do your one thing and you're done and you don't want to do anymore. And in that case, don't do anymore. So I hope that these tips have been helpful for you. They might be a little bit different. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you have any sort of high vibrational time management tips or productivity tips, then go ahead and share them in the comments as well. I would love to hear them, and I'm sure everybody else would as well. Until next week, I am going to send you smushy, smushy, happy, shiny puppy hugs. And I want to thank you for bringing your light to the world. Bye.